the pain hit me like a sudden freight train, sharp and unrelenting, pulling me right out of my sleep on a freezing Thursday night. I grabbed the edge of the nightstand, my breath coming in ragged gasps, knowing instantly that the twins were coming early. My first instinct was to call my husband, the man who had promised to protect me through every storm of life. When he finally answered on the 7th ring, I could hear soft laughter and jazz music floating through the background of his phone. I begged him through my tears to come home and take me to the hospital, but his voice was distant, clipped, and full of irritation. He told me he was locked in a critical strategy meeting with high-profile clients and could not simply walk out. I ended up sitting in the back of a hailing cab, clutching my swollen stomach while the driver sped through the rain, drenched streets toward the city hospital. The loneliness that washed over me inside that delivery room was far more agonizing than the contractions tearing through my body. While gentle nurses held my trembling hands and offered words of comfort, my husband was nowhere near a boardroom. He was actually sitting inside an exclusive 5-star restaurant across town, clinking champagne glasses with his ambitious executive assistant, Savannah. Earlier that afternoon, he had used our joint credit card to buy her a diamond bracelet, completely oblivious to the fact that his wife was screaming, in agony while bringing his son and daughter into the world. When I finally held my newborn babies against my chest, exhausted and hollowed out by grief, a profound quietness settled inside my heart. The naive, forgiving woman who had spent years making excuses for her husband burned away in that sterile hospital room. I had married Julian Vance 4 years ago when he was just an ambitious middle manager trying to climb the corporate ladder. I loved him so deeply that I chose to hide my actual family background, wanting to be sure he loved me for who I was rather than my family name. He believed I was just a quiet freelance designer with no inheritance, completely unaware that I was the sole heir to Sterling Global, the massive investment firm that silently owned his entire company. It was almost midnight when Julian finally strolled into the maternity ward, holding a cheap bundle of convenience store flowers, and rehearsing a rehearsed apology about traffic and tight schedules. But before he could even reach my door, the chief of surgery stepped into the hallway and blocked his path with a cold, unyielding gaze. The doctor informed him that his wife had already delivered healthy twins completely on her own, without any support from him. Then the doctor delivered the blow that shattered Julian's entire world. He explained that my family had already dispatched a private medical helicopter to airlift me and the newborns to our private estate, revealing for the first time that the quiet woman he abandoned was actually part of one of the wealthiest dynasties in the country. Julian stood frozen in the middle of the hallway, the cheap flowers slipping from his trembling fingers as his face drained of all color. The realization of what he had thrown away hit him like a physical blow, leaving him staring at an empty hospital room. He had assumed I was a helpless partner with nowhere else to turn, someone who would always be waiting at home no matter how poorly he treated me. But while he was spending the evening entertaining Savannah, my family had stepped in with quiet, decisive power. My mother had arranged top-tier pediatric specialists, secured our privacy, and ensured that my children and I were surrounded by genuine love and protection before Julian even realized his fatal mistake. From the sanctuary of my family estate, I did not waste my energy throwing angry tantrums or making dramatic threats. True power does not need to shout. It simply acts with quiet precision and deliberate focus. My father had retired from active corporate leadership years ago, but he still controlled the majority voting rights of the parent conglomerate that financed Julian's firm. When I sat down with my father over tea and calmly detailed how Julian had abandoned his pregnant wife during labor to buy luxury jewelry for another woman, the decision was immediate. A man who lacks basic integrity and personal honor in his own home cannot be trusted to lead a major corporation or manage hundreds of employees. Within 48 hours, subtle shifts began happening behind closed doors across the corporate sector. Investors who valued ethical leadership began raising serious questions about Julian's personal conduct and decision-making. At the same time, Julian began frantically calling my personal phone, leaving dozens of desperate voice messages that grew more chaotic by the hour. He kept pleading for a second chance, begging me to remember our history and swearing that he never meant to hurt me. But the sentence that stuck with me most was when he cried out that he never would have acted this way if he had known who I really was. That single sentence proved he was not remorseful for breaking my heart. He was terrified of losing the elite lifestyle he thought he could access through me. The ultimate irony unfolded when Savannah realized that Julian's corporate status was collapsing into dust. The moment news leaked that the board was investigating his personal conduct, she turned on him instantly to protect her own career. She released their private text messages to the executive committee, claiming that Julian had manipulated her and abused his position of power. She had only attached herself to him because she believed he was an unstoppable rising star. When she discovered that his soft-spoken wife actually held total financial control over his future, Savannah discarded him without a single second thought, leaving Julian entirely isolated on every front. On a bright Tuesday morning, Julian walked into what he assumed was a routine performance review, still attempting to flash his charming smile and talk his way out of trouble. Instead, he was met with total silence from a room full of hardened board members who handed him an immediate termination notice. His corporate credentials were revoked on the spot, his company car was repossessed, and security escorted him out of the building he had spent years trying to rule. My father sent him one final written message that morning, reminding him that genuine love demands loyalty when things are difficult, not just when life is comfortable and convenient. I filed for divorce later that afternoon with complete clarity and peace of mind, officially closing the chapter on a marriage built on illusion. In the months that followed, my focus shifted entirely to raising my twins in a home filled with laughter, security, and truth. Watching them take their first steps and hit their early milestones brought a deep healing that revenge could never provide. Julian tried reaching out one last time through his legal representative, asking if there was any path left for reconciliation or a chance to rebuild our family. I simply replied that while he would always be allowed to act as their biological father, he had permanently lost the privilege of being my husband. Looking back on that stormy night in the delivery room, I realized that finding out the truth was actually a profound gift wrapped in heartbreak. Hiding my identity for all those years eventually forced Julian to reveal his true character without any financial motivations clouding his choices. True strength is not about getting even or tearing someone else down. It is about knowing your own value and walking away from anyone who takes your presence for granted. To anyone listening who feels forgotten or betrayed by someone who promised to stand by you, remember that their inability to love you correctly does not diminish your worth. Sometimes losing the wrong person is the exact moment you finally start choosing yourself. Your support helps the channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you powerful real-life narratives every week.